What's up, guys? Today on the podcast, we're talking about DeepSeek, Super Bowl, and a bunch of Google stuff. Come on. All right.
So is it recording?
I think so. Let me just double check.
I had to ask after.
No, we are recording.
Well, lights
We
around.
are recording. All right. Welcome to another episode of Talk of the Trades. We're upgrading things around here with our cue cards. So hope y'all like that. Hey. Today, as I just mentioned, we'll talk about DeepSeek, some Super Bowl stuff, and maybe the potential of some AI ads. We'll talk through a few different Google updates, and if we have some time, we'll just talk about some other things going on in the trades, labor shortages, impact of private equity, and just the confidence in the growing space. So, kick it off. I think the hottest topic lately, Aaron, has been DeepSeek. I know when it first came out, I slacked everybody in the org, and then our developer was like, whoa, privacy concerns. So, sorry, Edric, but yeah, so it seems like the dust has cleared somewhat, and it's maybe not as bad, but what was your just overall take on DeepSeek and that announcement?
Yeah, and then, of course, I won the most likely to think everything is a scam award for 2024. So I also put something in there about it. I mean, I think it's less about DeepSeek and it's more about every piece of software that we use. And I think us, along with most of our clients, are on either Outlook 365 or Google Workspace. We're using some kind of cloud email system where at the same time, you should be looking at your expenses from your accounting standpoint and see, well, what softwares have access to your data? And because it's less of like a local data issue, like we don't have an internal server here that has all client info and everything.
Right.
We have specific softwares that we trust.
Yeah.
But in the same way, like LastPass has been breached.
Yeah.
So like there's so many softwares that have access, and I'm not as politically aligned as I might be. I think DeepSeek is more a political conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real one people should have. But DeepSeek is like the canary in the coal mine. We should be looking at everywhere else that has access to our data.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What are you authorizing?
Yeah, I think at a larger scale, it kind of like exposed the fact that, hey, maybe we should be a little more cautious with some of this stuff because, yeah, who knows where our information is being stored on what servers. And, like I recently uploaded all like my medical information to ChatGPT because I recently like got my heart checked out and all this stuff. And it's been acting as like my kind of dietitian and advisor. But I'm just thinking back now, it's like, is my social on those docs? And like, what is all on there? But you're right. It's like DeepSeek, I think, exposed it, and everybody's got to take like a deep look at like, okay, what are you actually using and where are you already getting your information? Because you always hear like the guys with the tin hats, like our phones are listening to us. And I always like would joke with my mom because she's like, oh, I don't want a Google in my house or I don't want an Alexa in my house. And I'm like, Mom, what is your phone, doing?
Yeah.
So I think to a certain level, like our privacy is like, I don't think we have it,
Yeah, I mean, I'm more in alignment of finding a local IT person that you do trust and getting an internal server again.
Yeah.
But then making sure that you have specific data that's localized. And I think that's the risk. But like we use Bamboo HR for our HR internally.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, our team's information's on there.
Yeah.
You get one data breach from Bamboo HR, one data breach from LastPass, all of a sudden you're screwed.
Yeah. My favorite app that we actually have or piece of software is actually Ramp.
Yeah, I like it.
I love Ramp, but again, like all of our financial information is in there. So scary thing to think about. The other things on DeepSeek is just how it like really impact NVIDIA and their stock. I thought that was just wild. And without getting, I guess, too in the weeds on it, I just think the way like information is disseminated and the rate and the speed and like how misinformation may, affect, the stock market like that is just crazy. But I think once they started peeling back like the layers of the onion, so to speak, they're finding out some of the claims they're making might not be true.
Absolutely. I
So-
mean, it's geopolitical warfare at the same time, and
Yeah.
that's where, I mean, it can happen on any platform. It's
Yeah.
not just a TikTok and DeepSeek thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if we think that Instagram is safe, come on. I mean, we get bad faith actors across the board.
That's
But,
true. It's true. Okay. The Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So specifically, do we think we're going to see a bunch of AI ads with with Sora and all these other things? I recently saw just a story about how Adidas created this whole floral collection ad, and it was such a hit. People were like, "Where do I buy it? Where do I get it?" And they came out and said, "Well, this was just made with AI, and it's not like real." But now, because there was so much demand, they're gonna make like a floral like series, which in my mind is crazy. And like, are we entering this new era of doing like an MVP with AI video? And if like your base reacts to it, then you make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's a couple things too, though. I felt like, and maybe I'm just getting old, I'm about to be 40, but I feel like the Super Bowl commercials get worse every year.
yeah.
Is that an old people thing? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe like it's just worn off, because I think, for the longest time you're like, that's like something you would look forward and care about. But it's like, you've seen it, you kind of know what's going to happen, more or less. I think sometimes there's a couple gems in there that you're like, oh, I love that. But to me, like it's kind of worn off also. It's like, it's not like a must watch for me anymore. And I hate to say that, because I think most major sports, as I've gotten older, I just don't watch as much anymore.
Yeah.
I still like pay attention to my teams, but I used to be like fanatical about college football, and then I'd know all the players and like, all that. But nowadays I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. So,
Yeah, I was talking, because what I'd be concerned about is a lack of creativity, and does it get dumbed down? And also, then you get people that say, well, they did that whole ad with AI. I should do my whole advertising campaign with AI.
Yeah.
What they don't say is, well, how many people were there reprompting? And so a lot of work goes into it. Just because it's AI doesn't mean it didn't take like $5 million to make the spot. But I was having a conversation with Allie last night at dinner about one of the commercials that you got done and helped broker the deal for. I mean, it was like $35,000 commercial. We got maybe 430s and 415s out of it.
Yep.
But a big brand, a really big brand, did this whole campaign and got like a 30 and 215s for this one product that they're pushing. I'm not going to mention the brand on purpose here, but they spent like $500,000 on just that creative.
Yeah.
And they had social ads, sure, but like once you do that once, now you got to re-up and spend that money again. And so making sure that you're able to reuse the creative and that it has legs, I think is really cool. So what I like, getting back to Super Bowl, is seeing anything that goes from the TV and seeing how they then do it digitally to follow you around and where their ad placements are, and making sure they're getting the most out of those dollars.
Yeah, and to that point, like specifically for home service contractors out there, business owners, some things you gotta look out for when you are producing video for broadcast or for social or anything. Yes, there's an investment around like the creative and production, but a couple things that people don't typically think about is like the usage rights around the talent and the music, right? And so what I mean by talent, it's like your voiceover talent. Like how long do you get to use that voiceover? And a lot of times it's sold in like 12 weeks, 26 weeks, 52 weeks. Always strives to get a total buyout, and your production company should be able to negotiate that. But a total buyout would mean you can use it in perpetuity forever. Same thing with the talent, like the actors that are going to be in your spots, right? Really understanding what the usage is, because let's say you have a 26-week usage. Well, when that is up, you got to repay these people to use them again. So to your point earlier, like get your money's worth out of it. Same thing with music. A lot of music is royalty free now and all that, but you really want to double check and make sure. And if you're ever getting custom music done or any of that, you're always going to get a total buyout. So keep that in mind when you're doing your production. And then to your point about, what will maybe people charge to like do it on the AI. I think, agencies and people, they're going to figure out a way to like move those dollars around so it's still like the same price. While there might not be as much labor on the production side, then we're going to start seeing fees like increase for just the ideation and the concepting. And then it's going to be really curious to see like if we start seeing like line items around like prompt engineering. You know what I mean? Like, because now you need a specific person in a role to like input to a Sora or whatever you're using, and then an output. And then even if your output isn't final, do you still need to do some post production on it? So all that stuff is super intriguing. But I think in terms of pricing, I don't think they'll be charging less.
Not at all.
So. So that'll be interesting to see. Well, cool. Who do you got winning the Super Bowl?
I mean, I think the guys in black and white are going to win it. So definitely it's going to be a Taylor Swift Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. It's the Taylor Swifts versus the Eagles, basically. And I feel bad for the Chiefs because, don't get me wrong, love the Swifties. Love me some Taylor Swift because my wife loves her. I'm normally wearing my Swiftie friendship bracelet. But the Chiefs are basically known as like the team that Taylor Swift's boyfriend plays on, which is, I guess it's not necessarily disrespectful, but they're a talented group of guys.
Fun to say.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be a good game. I got the Eagles winning. I'm going to say 31-27. Saquon runs for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Cry, Eagles, cry. That's what I want.
Coming from a Cowboys fan here.
God's team.
Who's your pick though? Who you got? You got the Chiefs?
I think the Chiefs are going to win by 6.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome. We'll check in next week and see what's going on there. Okay, some updates from the world of Google. So the first update is one that's big for Google business profiles. So Google recently enabled a chat feature. So just more opportunity for customers to reach out to you and take up real estate on the SERP. The other big one too was making JavaScript needing to be enabled for browsers for something. I don't really know the technical side of that. But in terms of the chat feature, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to be, on the level of 1 to 10 in terms of a game changer? What are we thinking?
A 5. I mean, I think it's about the same. If I remember correctly, it's Podium already had something like this of message us with a 2-way SMS. I don't know if the feature you're talking about is it Google AI driven or is it directly going to the CSR?
I don't think it's AI driven. I think it's going to go direct to whatever contact that you put in there. So, but that's interesting. That could be an opportunity to develop a product around that. Now that we're talking about it.
I think it's an SMS. It's the way that Google is talking about it and they frame it. But it's really just starting that text message conversation. So integrating whether you're using Bird Eye Chat, Podium Chat, or Service Titan even chat, it should be able to go back and forth directly into your CRM.
Do you think like this is a move that's just going to further this whole idea of like kind of almost like 0 click, but in the sense of like, I guess just reducing clicks to the site? I mean, we've had click to call forever, right? And so I think that's one opportunity. But now like entering another opportunity for the chat, for the people who didn't have Podium or any sort of integration, like do you see a major impact, do you think, happening there to where it's like now we're going to even see less, traffic potentially to the site because those people who like to fill out forms can now just like do it via chat?
Yeah, and something I've been chewing on and thinking about for a long time, and it got popular, 8 years ago, maybe, of like people brands creating their own apps. But I'll get there and land the plane. But what I'm thinking about is like Google has to control the conversation so they can charge for it. And as they're seeing their market share drop, they've always flirted with the idea of charging for your Google business profile. And they want to find ways to have an upgraded service. So GLS, Google Local Services, is a part of getting there. But there's always a survey every year that goes out to marketers that ask for, basically, they're trying to test what we're willing to pay for.
Right.
Are you willing to pay to have reviews on your Google business profile? Well, what the heck? That's the whole point, right? That's part of the whole point of GBP.
Yeah.
And so the more they control those conversations, it's really going to feed, in my perspective, into an ad type of format.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about this paying for Google Business Profile, we've seen Twitter. Now you can pay for the check mark. Today, actually, I was on Facebook and I have some stuff listed on Marketplace, and I got prompted. It's like, hey, verify your profile. And so I was like, oh, cool. So I'm like going through the steps. And of course, the last step is like $14.99 per month. And I was like,
Man.
seriously? But man, I tell you, if Google did that and it was like $9.99 a month, I think everybody would pay for it at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
I think there's a point in time where the barrier to entry for cost is not so great for a business, right? I'm not going to spend $14.99 a month personally for a check mark on Facebook or Twitter. Like it just is not important to me. And I think if you in a sneaky way for Google has somewhat done that with with Google local services, right? And in essence, having to pay for that to get verified and then be Google guaranteed, right? So that's interesting. I never really knew that Google had asked in the past if or even thought about getting people to pay for it, but it makes sense. And now, since there's a blueprint out there with, I think X or Twitter was the 1st to go there. Now Facebook, Google could be next.
Yeah, and that's where I'm thinking about, their narrative is they don't trust the business website to convert. Like they're going to do a better job of that because you asked a question as a consumer, they're giving you the answer. And I think there's some legs behind that when you look at the broad majority of websites in the trades.
Yeah.
However, it takes away a competitive advantage. And as their market share decreases, and that's why I'm saying, other ideas about, and this is an old idea coming back, of like creating your own mobile app that you have customers, download while you're in the home, has maintenance reminders and things along those lines, especially these brands that are now fully home services, not just plumbing.
Yeah.
It makes sense to own that conversation so that they don't ever have to go back to Google in the long run.
Yeah. What do you think the incentive is for Google to try to be like to not have people go to their sites? Like if they're not paying, if you're not having to pay for it, like what's the incentive? And in my mind, I'm just thinking about it's all like we're moving into this era of like people are like don't want to have to like I guess search farther than they have to for like an answer or whatever. Like now generative, search is just giving you the snippet like right away. Perplexity, ChatGPT, like it's all generative. You don't have to click anywhere. So is it in that kind of vein, or what do you think like the incentive is for them?
I mean, I think if we speed up 9 months from now, maybe even a little bit longer, the goal really for somebody like a Google is having a chat with your phone and saying, yeah, I need an AC company.
Yeah.
Here are the 3 AC companies that are highly recommended. Would you like for me to start a chat with them?
Yeah.
And that's all done over
Wow.
voice. And so they're laying the groundwork for prompts to happen in that way to where it can all be controlled on that device.
That's interesting.
And now you can then say, all right, well, do you want to be opted into this chat network or not? And so now they're controlling another way of being contacted.
Dang, that's interesting. Yeah, because I've been hot on the whole shift from generative AI to agentic AI and just trying to understand just the shift in general. But I think you're right. Like eventually, once people figure out that they can just talk to their phone and the phone handle everything, because I mean we've had voice assistants, right? Alexa, Siri, all those. But now for it to be more seamlessly integrated, I think it's going to be super interesting. And if it can get you 90% of the way, there, because something that already kind of exists like that, I don't know if you've ever used it, but like, I don't know if it's called like Google Reserve, but like you can basically have Google call to book a table at a restaurant for you. I forget what it's called, but it's done it for me like a couple times, which is really cool. And it's just like an automated voice. So if we go that route for the trades, that's going to be Very interesting. And then can you imagine like AI CSRs talking to like AI, and will they even need to talk at that point? Like, because the language could just be code.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But it's the same process that you're talking about. What Google did with that Reserve Now was they used platforms in the restaurant space that it was you have to go onto the GPP, but there was a connection in the Google Business Profile with these reservation companies, and so you had to dynamically connect it and then manually go in and book. Well, what are they doing now? You don't have to do the manually book. You could just do it from your phone.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same song and dance. It's just now with chat for more verticals.
Wow. Well, that's going to be interesting. And I should have just read the cue card earlier, so I'm just going to read it now. But the next Google update is Google made it so that JavaScript has to be enabled at the browser level in order to perform searches. This blocks rank trackers like SEMrush from working effectively. The programs have since found a workaround, but it will likely make the platforms more expensive. Also, there's a lot of conversation about this actually not being about rank trackers, but about blocking LLMs, i.e. ChatGPT, Perplexity, from scraping Google SERPs and regurgitating them in results. Super interesting. I did not know all that. And shout out to Katie and Sydney for putting these together. So what are from your technical SEO background, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you need to have two different sitemaps. You need to have it for the AI LLMs, and then you also need to have it for the Google. But I think it's Google, the way that actually, going back, it's not Google, but how ChatGPT scraped Google to create their stuff. I love the memes right now about GPT crying because DeepSeek then used their LLM to create their own. You just stole Google's hard work and data to create your own LLM. Well, Google has now stolen the hardworking website copywriters' content, and they're using generative AI to give results without having the click through.
Yeah.
Like, they're all stealing each other's property, and then when it happens to them, they're crying foul. And it's insane to me, but it's also a little bit justified because you've invested a lot of money and time, and I hate to see somebody come in and swoop you, but you got to continue to evolve. And I think that's the biggest thing is, especially in our economy, a lot of people are sitting pretty and aren't growing and trying new things.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big challenge right now. It's an innovation push. And
yeah.
You can't just copy other people's stuff right now. We've got to try to innovate in different ways.
Yeah, I think the quote that just has stuck with me for a minute now, and I think this can apply to different industries, but it's like marketers won't be replaced by like AI, but the marketers who don't use AI will be replaced. I think it's kind of how the quote goes, but so I think it's inevitable. We're all going to have to figure out some way to like embed it and incorporate it. So one last little nugget on the whole AI and like ownership of like content. One thing that our SEO lead Katie brought up the other day was just being careful about using AI generated images, because technically the ownership of those is still gray, right? And she made the example of like when a photographer takes a picture, like does the photographer own it or not, because like the camera took the photo technically, but the photographer like framed it. And so that's another like super interesting topic in my mind is like how will all this like ownership like because imagine somebody writing a book just using all AI, right? And how do you profit off that? And do you have to pay royalties anywhere? Like that stuff's going to be very, very hairy.
Use your terms of service, whatever AI tool you're using right now, they're all really built out to say you own it.
Yeah.
And so keeping copies of that would be a great way to save yourself. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
As the kids say, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Drop us a comment. If we misspoke on anything, let us know, and we'll tackle in the comments.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you guys. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Later.